Welcome to the Navigator podcast.
Welcome to the Navigator Academy, Module 16. Today our guest is Michael Canic, PhD. He is the president of Making Strategy Happen, a consulting firm that helps committed leaders turn ambition into strategy and strategy into reality. Previously, Michael managed the consulting division at the Atlanta Consulting Group and held a leadership role at FedEx. A compelling speaker, he has delivered more than 600 presentations to audiences on 4 continents, many through Vistage Worldwide, the largest organization of CEOs and business leaders. Michael, I read your new book, Ruthless Consistency, and I really enjoyed your candor and principled structure. It was an easy read, but also a meaningful read. So thank you. And it's also part of our Navigate Book Club, which we'll be discussing this Friday. What prompted you to write it?
Well, great. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
What prompted me to write it, in a word, failure. Early in my career, I found that, we got good intentions, good plans, good ideas, but execution is the hard part. And I worked with FedEx, was the start of my corporate career, and at one time had responsibility for implementing service quality throughout a district.
Mm-hmm.
And, exciting time, lots of responsibility. However, I decided rather than running off and start implementing and getting people into teams and training and all that, I wanted to do a little research and find out, what caused these initiatives to succeed or fail in other companies. Well, the long and short of it was most of them failed. I wanted to know why. So as I did that research, I started getting to the core elements that have formed part of the book these years later. And I found that's been true, whether it's, service quality, it's strategic planning, IT implementations, any of 1,000 things you're trying to do, these things are likely to fail. So I thought, it's crazy. It's a waste of time, money, and effort. Let's really identify what are the practices and principles that best correlate with success. That's what I've attempted to capture in the book.
Great. And then you've applied it again to like strategic management. But as you said, you could apply it to anything.
Absolutely.
Any change, transformational change requires a lot of work and dedication and commitment. And I'll just say that a lot of them, as you know, they fail.
Exactly right.
Yeah. What's been the reaction thus far?
Well, I've been fortunate. It's been great in that the book did hit number 1 and number 2 in a couple of bestseller lists, made a couple of top leadership books of the year. And what people have said is that it's practical. It's a comprehensive yet very practical approach, ready to apply models, tools, again, because this is based on experience, my experience from other companies, and really trying to distill what are the things that correlate, with success, essentially, developing the right focus and sustaining it, creating the right environment so we can get things done through our people, and building the right team. And when leaders approach that with the right commitment, an unwavering commitment, what I call ruthless consistency, then unsurprisingly, they're much more likely to succeed.
Right. It typically, starts at the top.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can almost tell early on if something's going to be successful based on the leader, his or her focus, what they role model, what they expect of others, and the behaviors that they exhibit. They set the tone for everyone else.
Cool. Well, I went out to your website and recently read your blog, 4 words to guide you in 2021, and I thought they were just insightful. So anticipate, engage, execute, and recalibrate. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think the anticipate is, as we all know, we're in a rapidly changing environment. Uncertainty, abounds. So we can't just, keep doing what we're doing. Even if we change, we have to anticipate, what could happen. So one of the things I'm working on with my clients when it comes to strategy is contingency planning. Mm-hmm. What's the most likely case scenario? What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? And if we can plan contingencies around those, and then more importantly, even triggers. So what would have to happen, Brad, to trigger us to take a different approach or to change direction? And the idea is not that we can perfectly predict the future, but if we can anticipate what's likely to happen, then we can exploit the opportunities and mitigate the threats. So anticipate is really the key first step there. Secondly, engage. And as we all know, people are dealing with much more uncertainty. There's much more anxiety out there. People are under much more pressure, whether it's working from home or homeschooling and, the things they've had to wrestle with. So it's especially important that leaders engage their people. engage their people. And that means connecting with them in their worlds. It means respect. It means trust. It means caring about people, valuing them, finding out what's going on in their worlds, making sure we're sensitive to that, letting them know we care about them as individuals, not just as employees. And I think if we do that, that provides a good foundation for engagement. And then the second part of engagement is don't communicate at people, communicate with people. Make sure you're not just pushing information. Leaders often think we have to keep people informed. We've got to update them. So we push information at them. Well, one-way communications doesn't get a lot of retention or application. So far better if you engage people in the conversation, get their input, get their reactions, get their feedback, then you're much better positioned, to engage them in the conversation. With young employees especially, I'm sure as you well know, it's especially important we engage them. We can't just push information at them. So that's the engage part. Of course, the execute is, it's easy to have plans, as we said before, but we have to make sure there's a discipline around execution. And again, that starts at the top. And again, you're very familiar with this in your practice, but if we instituted the mechanisms to make sure we're tracking progress, we're clear on the time-linked milestones, we have the mechanisms to follow up, to around that. So we've got a real discipline around execution. And that's execution, not just on the technical side, but the people side as well. Because the thing that always comes up in project management, we plan for the technical side, but things often fail because of what? The people side. Right. Exactly. So, the idea of total project management is we have to manage both the technical side and the people side of implementation. That's total project management. That's what we have to execute. And then the fourth element, I said, the fourth word really is recalibrate. And that is to be prepared to change direction without feeling guilty, without feeling, remorse about what we've done in the past. You reserve the right to do what makes sense. So if the circumstance changes, don't fall into what's called the sunk cost fallacy. Say, geez, we've invested this time and energy and effort. We can't stop doing that. Well, yes, you've invested time, energy, and effort, but don't throw good money after bad.
Exactly.
Right?
So many people don't understand sunk cost. It's like going, no, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Stop.
Exactly right. So celebrate the opportunity to recalibrate when it makes sense. So, I like to say, lease your beliefs, don't own them. And that means they're subject to change.
Well, and if you fail, then it's really you failed to learn, because that's what the journey's about, especially projects, any change or conversation. It's all future based. We don't know. We don't have the crystal ball.
Absolutely.
So and journey.
No plan, as they say, survives contact with reality. So you plan these things knowing that they are going to change. You have to constantly either tweak or recalibrate. It's like sailing. You don't just say, well, I'm leaving North America. We're going to sail to, Europe and point in in one direction and then we're gone, right? We're continually adjusting, we're trimming the sails, we're adjusting, we're monitoring. Well, that's how it is with strategic change.
Absolutely. So as an author, I know you like to write, but what business book are you reading now, and what are you learning?
Well, the book I'm reading now is $1 Trillion Coach. By a guy named Bill Campbell, who you may have known was the CEO of Intuit and also played a major role with Apple and others, then became basically a coach, to some Eric Schmidt and some very big name people. And it talks about some of his practices as a coach. And the two things that really jumped out at me, as I'm reading through this book, number one, he says, when you ask the question, what keeps you up at night? He says, what the answer should be is, how do I take care of my people? How do I make sure they are engaged and supported so they can execute what we need to do? So for him, it was very much a people first philosophy, which aligns with my approach in that, as leaders, we create environments that enable our people to perform at their best, to execute what we need to execute. Right. So on the one hand, he's very people focused, but on the other, he was very much a tough love guy. So he would be very direct, not in a mean or cruel or put down kind of way, but very direct about this isn't working, right? That's failing. That practice isn't going to do it. You can't do that, right? So he would give the tough love and with very good intention, but that's what's needed for leaders to be able to improve. So we have to be able to be very focused on people, and we have to be able to give the tough love, so it's that combination of caring and discipline that I think is so powerful.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the interview.
Well, it's great being here. Thanks for having me, Brad. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.